Alec Baldwin is back in the news. Scott Pelley needs to go back to journalism school, and Joe Biden is at it again, spending other people's money. Stay tuned, everybody. Folks, for the very best meat you have ever eaten, check out samsbutchershop.com. Go there, shop around. When you go to checkout, enter the coupon code Triple T for a 10% discount. Check it out. Oh, there you are. Hello, everyone. I am trailertrashtim. How's your mom and them? Welcome to the channel. Thank you for joining us here on a Wednesday, and I am mighty happy that you dialed us up. Thanks for coming. Got a lot going on today, and a lot that I want to get to. I want to lead with a story that I wanted to cover more in depth, but there's just not enough information about it. It's just a very tragic, heartbreaking and sad story that no doubt you have heard about by now. There's been a bombing in Gaza of a hospital. I was raring to go with this, but I did not have enough facts to speak articulately enough on the matter. The initial reports that I had read from various news sources that I use attributed it to possibly being Israel bombing this hospital in Gaza. Subsequent reports said no, it was Hamas. Others said it was the Palestinians. The bottom line is we don't know, but it is a tragic situation. That anybody would bomb a hospital is just awful. And God have mercy on all these people. What I want out of this is not so much to be right in the things I've been saying about this. I just want the war to stop against against all those people in that region, against the Israelis, against the Palestinians, against the Gazans. It's just an awful thing, and hopefully it will come to an end very soon. Okay, I'm going to lead off with this. The story of American actor, pardon me, Alec Baldwin. As many of you know, Alec Baldwin, who has been in dozens of movies, he is a flaming left-wing liberal. Alec Baldwin was on a movie set almost exactly 2 years ago. I believe it was in New Mexico, and the name of the movie was or is Rust. And there was a fatal shooting on the set. Alec Baldwin used a gun that one can only speculate he thought was a prop gun. It was not a prop gun. It was a fully loaded weapon, a pistol or revolver. I'm not sure exactly what it was. And he pointed it at someone on the set, I suppose, is what happened. Anyway, he shot somebody and killed them. And it's been just in and out of the news since that time. As far as I understood, the case had reached its conclusion, and he had not done any jail time to speak of. So I thought it was all over, but it came back in the news today. Apparently, the local authorities have new evidence, and they're going to reopen this case against Alec Baldwin. The fact of the matter is he shot and killed somebody. Whether it was an accident or not, he did shoot and kill somebody, and there are people who are not satisfied that justice has been served in this case. Now, the reason I bring this up is not about that case per se. This is the reason I bring this up. If you're watching from around the world, other than the United States, you probably already know we got a lot of guns in our nation. We have a Second Amendment, which gives the citizens of the United States the right to bear arms. And a lot of us do. And a lot of people in the world that are not Americans wish they had the same right. The bottom line is we have the right to bear arms under the Second Amendment in the United States. The whys don't really matter. Some people do it for protection, some people for hunting. That doesn't really matter. The fact remains we have the right to own such weapons if we so choose. Now, this outrages the leftists. This outrages most Democrats. The fact that the American people would have the right to actually own such things absolutely outrages them. It's only in the mind the little mind of a Democrat that they can apply, that they can attach such emotions of toward an inanimate object as if an inanimate object can do something on its own. It takes a bad guy with a gun to do something bad. Not the gun can't do anything in and of itself. But anyway, the left in America loathes guns of all kinds. They don't believe people should have the right to own them at all, for the most part. And I'm talking about, the talking heads on The View, for example. They're just aghast that anybody would own a gun. Although, of course, they all have security details, and their security details, what do you think they carry? So the hypocrisy is thick on this issue. But this is a point that I've been wanting to make for a long time. Because Hollywood is dominated by these leftists, these left-wing loonies, these people who are so anti-gun, anti-Second Amendment. I've got a suggestion for all you movie makers out there. Why don't you just do this to be consistent with your ideology? Stop shooting movies that have guns in them. From this point forward, don't ever make a movie again where guns have to be used. I mean, if you want to be consistent, if you don't want to be called a hypocrite by people like me, because you are, if you don't want that, be consistent with what you believe. Be consistent with your philosophical beliefs when it comes to gun ownership. If you think guns are evil, stop using them in your movies. Just stop. And your TV shows. I mean, if they're really bad, stop using them, right? If you really believe that way, then stop using them. I mean, you don't think people should smoke cigarettes, then don't let people smoke cigarettes in your movies. It makes perfect sense to me, right? That's just what I wanted to insert on that little item right there. Let me move on to the esteemed Joe Biden, the occupant of the White House. Joe Biden has asked Congress, or is going to ask Congress in the next few days, it has been reported by several news outlets. He is going to ask Congress to give him $100 billion for Israel and Ukraine. $100 billion for Israel and Ukraine. Let's review. The United States of America is over $33 trillion in debt. Now, I'm just a common man down here in the sticks in Alabama who is having problems doing the math on this. I mean, do we really need to break it down to such simplistic terms? If I have $10 in the bank, how much money can I spend? $10, right? I can't spend $11 because I don't have $11. If I have $1,000, I cannot spend $1,001. Neither can you. That's the real world we all live in. That's not the world that the United States government lives in. You know why? Because they've got their own printing press up there, and they can print these IOUs all day long, this fiat currency. Make this currency and get guarantees from China. They have to pay it back. We can barely pay on the interest, for heaven's sakes, on this $33 trillion worth of indebtedness. So the question is obvious, is it not? If you're $33 trillion in debt, this is the question, but not enough people are asking it, certainly not in Congress. How can we give anybody $100 billion for Ukraine and Israel if we're $33 trillion in debt? And if we can, do you think, Uncle Joe, maybe we could squeeze out 8 or 10 billion for our own border? God, here we go again. Once again, Israel takes priority over our own nation. Once again, Ukraine is more important than the citizens of the United States, the citizens you deign to be president of, Joe. But you're not asking Congress for a plug nickel for the Texas border, are you? Because you've got that in control. How much money did it cost when you ordered the barbed wire fence be cut on the border so more illegal aliens could come again? How much did that cost? But we can give $100 billion to Israel. We can give $100 billion to Ukraine. But we can't spend 10 cents on our own border. Whose side are you on? The answer is evident. We have the answer. We know the answer. This man doesn't care anything about the people for whom he is apparently serving as president. Must I keep harping on the obvious? But folks, I'm telling you, if you're an American, your congressional representatives need to be lit up. They need to be hearing from you. I lit mine up the other day with regard to the House Speaker. By the way, we still don't have a House Speaker. They're voting. They voted today. I know 2 different rounds, and it was between Jim Jordan of Ohio and Hakeem Jeffries, this left-wing lunatic out of New York, who actually got more votes than Jordan, but nobody got enough votes to be elected Speaker because 20 dingbat Republicans voted for people that don't have a snowball's chance in hell of winning. Some of them voted for Lee Zeldin. Some of them voted for Kevin McCarthy, who just got booted out of this position. My Lord, Jim Jordan needs the majority of those 20 votes that he didn't get today in order to become Speaker. So it's just agonizing to watch these people. But the bright side is, as I said the other day, what we have in the meantime is gridlock. Gridlock, baby, bring it on. If we've got gridlock, nothing of significance is happening. Hey, maybe if we've got gridlock, they can't give Joe his $100 billion. So, hey, maybe we should just stay this way. Just keep it this way. How about that? All right. I want to get on to one last thing here. I've been meaning to get to this all week, but I couldn't. Last Sunday night, CBS News was granted a one-on-one interview with Joe Biden, and the interviewer was a man by the name of Scott Pelley. This appeared on the program 60 Minutes on Sunday night. I don't know if you know who Scott Pelley is, but Scott Pelley is a man who apparently flunked journalism school, and you're going to see why here in just a moment. But Scott Pelley was given a half hour with Joe Biden, and I watched this interview he did. I suffered through this thing. I did all the work so you folks ain't got to watch this mess. But Scott Pelley, all this man did is he sits in front of Joe Biden and he pitches to him softball after softball after softball after softball. No hard-hitting questions. No follow-up questions. He gave Joe Biden nothing but the easiest pre-planned questions that he could possibly ask him. He wasn't challenged on anything, Biden, that is to say. At no point did he have to break a sweat. These things are slick. They're highly produced. They are planned ahead of time. There are no surprises. Everybody knows what's going on. You will notice that this interview was not granted to Tucker Carlson, for example. Scott Pelley is a cream puff, and he was safe for Biden. Biden knew that he wouldn't get any hard questions from Scott Pelley. Now, you must understand that Joe Biden is not in charge. You do know that, right? He has the title of president right now, but Joe Biden is surrounded by a circle, pardon me, of about 4 or 5 people who are pulling the strings, and they're telling him what to do, where to go, where to step. When he gives a press conference, of course, all the people who are to ask questions are picked in advance, and you can see this when he stands in front of a podium because he'll look down and he'll say things exactly as this. I'm not exaggerating. Okay, it says here I'm supposed to call on Bill Johnson of NBC News, exactly like that. And he has uttered things like, I don't think they want me to call on such and such person. And then somebody like Karine Jean-Pierre will break in and say, that's all the questions we have today. We're done with this. And they'll shuffle him off stage. Who's handling Joe Biden? Well, he has a circle of, like I say, 4 or 5 advisors. His chief of staff is one. Karine Jean-Pierre is in the mix. Dr. Jill Biden is one of his handlers, along with a couple of others. And, of course, there's a gentleman down the street who has a hotline to the Oval Office. And this gentleman who lives right down the street used to be the former occupant of the White House, if you know what I mean, and he's got a hotline on Joe's desk. Do the math. But anyway, Scott Pelley sits down with Joe Biden, and he asks him these cream puff questions. I sat there and I watched this interview, this sham, and I wrote everything down. I wrote all of the questions down until I could take no more, and I wanted to relay to you some of these questions, not all of them, but a few of them, just so you could see what a bunch of softballs this guy threw to Joe Biden. This was such a phony production. And Scott Pelley started out by bringing up the issue of American hostages in Israel and Palestine. And he had such a look of concern on his face, don't you know? Oh, it was such an important moment, and he wanted to appear as if he were such a deep thinker, and his questions were so thoughtful, and he stuck his glasses in his mouth with such a look of deep concern on his face, and he had such a probing, hard-hitting question for Joe Biden, and he said, Mr. President, why do you feel so strongly about speaking to the families of these hostages on Zoom? Huh? That's your question? Why do you feel so strongly about speaking to these families personally on Zoom? That's your hard-hitting question, Mr. Journalist? Are you kidding me? What kind of question is that? I don't even know what to say to that, for heaven's sakes. And it's my job to give commentary on this kind of stuff. But let me move on to the next one. The glasses go back into the mouth as a look of deep concern comes over the face of this esteemed journalist, Scott Pelley. And he says, Mr. President, folks, listen to this. I was just screaming at the TV when I'm watching this. Mr. President, is getting the American hostages back safely among your highest priorities now? God! You're kidding me! Is getting the American hostages back safely among your highest priorities now? What's Biden going to say? No, it's not important at all. Well, Scott, thank you for that question. That deep, hard-hitting question that goes to the heart of what's really the most important issues of the day, whether or not I care about American hostages. Nah, Scott, I don't care anything about them. By the way, I got to go eat lunch. Are you almost done? Question number 3, Mr. President. Can you foresee U.S. troops in combat in this new Middle East war? Well, we certainly pray not, don't we? But Joe says no, but we already know that we've got people ready to go. I covered that yesterday. Mr. President, he continues, as he looks toward the sky as though he has to gather his thoughts for another piercing question. Because of what we're seeing in the Middle East, is the threat of terrorism in the U.S. increased? Hey, Scott, will you call on me to answer that question? Scott, over here. Scott, is the threat of terrorism increased in the U.S.? You damn well better believe it, Scott, based on what this president is doing to us. You know, cutting our border fence down. And it just goes on and on and on and on. Is it, Mr. President, is it time for a ceasefire? No, Scott, it's not time. We don't want a ceasefire. Mr. President, does the dysfunction in the Congress increase the danger in the world? And one more. I just got to give you one more, and then I'm done with that. He says this, Mr. President, I lost my place. Bear with me. Mr. President, my Lord, why do you feel so strongly about this? What does Israel mean to you? I wish I'd been in the room when he was doing this puff piece with Biden. I would have said, cut the cameras off. Pelley, get out of the chair and let me do this interview. Which brings me to my final point I want to make. And I'm going to need your help on this one, folks. I would love to be the man who was granted 1 hour. Hey, I'll take a half hour with Joe Biden because I've got my own list of questions. And I don't need my glasses to chew on because I got them top of mind. I got my own list of questions that I would love to ask of Joe Biden. You ready for mine? Now, this is just off the top of my head. I could come up with 50 more easily, but this is just enough to get us going. If I gave you every question I would ask him, it would be more than a half-hour interview, and I'd be pulled away from the interview kicking and screaming, and plus this video would be an hour and a half long. So let me just give you a few off the top of my head, okay? Just imagine that I'm sitting in the chair across from Biden. Biden's in the hot seat. Nobody's tipped him off on what Timmy Boy's going to say here, but here's my question. Are you ready? All the gloves are off, and you're going to get some real journalistic effort out of this. Mr. President, where did you go wrong with Hunter? That's question number one. Mr. President, do you still shower with your daughter? Question number 3. While his jaw is agape. Mr. President, are you willing to concede that your American CIA trained Hamas? Oh, I'm sorry. He needs some water. Could you get Joe some water here? He needs some water. Question number 4. Mr. Biden, why has your Department of Justice been weaponized against your chief political opponent? Take your time, sir. I got all day. Question number 5. Mr. Biden, who tells you how to run the country? Could you be specific? Question number 6. Hang on, I got to get my my note card. I think I've got one. Yeah, I do. Question number 6. Mr. President, Mr. Biden, I don't want to say Mr. President. Why do you not support Russia's war against these in Ukraine? Let me repeat that, Mr. President. I don't believe you heard it. Why do you not support Russia's war against these in Ukraine? And a follow-up, if I may, sir. Why are you sending money to these in Ukraine? Could you answer that? Question number 7. Would you support, Mr. Biden, an independent counsel to investigate your business dealings in Ukraine and your sons? Would you support that? You need some more water? Okay, one more question, Mr. Biden. Get him some more water. One more question for you. How do you feel about the Canadian Parliament celebrating and awarding a NAZIS? How do you feel about that? And furthermore, a follow-up. Do you believe that Justin Trudeau should resign? Those are the questions I have for Mr. Biden. If I were in Scott Pelley's chair, he'd be getting an earful from me and follow-ups. Wouldn't it be nice if we had a journalist that had not only the guts, which some do, but the access to these people where they could actually be put in the hot seat and have to answer questions like this? Wouldn't that be nice? But we're never going to see that, not with this bunch. That's the difference in Biden and Trump. You know, Trump would talk to anybody. He didn't care. Trump would walk up to you and ask me a question. He was completely accessible. Any reporter could ask him anything, and he wasn't afraid to answer it. He might not even like the reporter, but he would take the question. He sits down with anybody. He's fearless. Trump is fearless. Biden is a clown and a liar. Okay, I want your help. This is what I want all of you to do down in the comments for me today. This is your homework assignment. Just imagine for a moment you are a journalist and you are granted one question to ask Joe Biden. Just one. You get to ask him one question and one question only. What is your question going to be? You got it? Put your question for Joe Biden down in the comments. I would really love to see what you have to ask him. Go ahead. Make my day. Hey, look, give me a big thumbs up on this video. Like it so we can get old algorithm going crazy for us, right? Listen, if you have not yet subscribed to the Triple T channel, as long as you are not an illegal alien, you are a legal resident of your country, as long as you do not wear a face mask, don't wear a face mask, folks, be free. You are more than welcome and invited to subscribe to the channel, hit the button down below, and join our growing community. Thank you so much for joining me, everybody. This is Trailer Trash Tim, and I will see you all tomorrow.